Hey, this is Mike Shank, and this is the At Speed podcast presented by Rocky Fork Company.
And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, as Mike Shank said, to another episode of At Speed podcast with Mike Shank, featuring yours truly, Tim May. Mike is the former Ohio State coach Earl Bruce, the late Ohio State coach Earl Bruce once said, a lot of water has gone under the dam since the last time we talked. But you guys are heading suddenly into a doubleheader weekend at Mid-Ohio. I would think you're juiced about that. I mean, from the standpoint of where you grew up, et cetera.
Well, Mid-Ohio is always great to go to. You know, the IndyCar races at Mid-Ohio were always the ones that I went to and got to enjoy and watch how we came not how we came up, but where I wanted to be.
Yeah.
You know, and it started, I think, a little bit of trip backwards, like 1980 or so. I saw Johnny Rutherford run in the Pennzoil car, if you remember that.
Wow. Yeah.
And
the Chaparral.
That's the first time that I can really remember stuff in IndyCar specifically at Mid-Ohio. I always wanted to do it, though. And as years went on and we were doing, my self-driving Pro Sports 2000 and Toyota Atlantic, and we were always there as a support group to IndyCar, it just seemed unreachable.
Yeah.
So to go back there, and whether it's in the sports cars or the Indy cars, is always great. Now to have a double there where I think we'll have a very good car and Jack goes well there. We finished 10th there last year, I think. I think it bodes well for our chances. And now a double race, which will be interesting. Looking forward to it.
75 laps, 2 days back to back. How much does that take out of a driver, number one, and then out of a team?
Yeah, they both take equal hits. I mean, a practice qualifying and race in 1 day is a lot, and it's just like this. And if you get into a problem, you get kind of in this tailspin that's hard to pull out of.
Yeah.
The second day is a little bit easier because it's just a quali and then a race, a little bit easier. On the upside, though, from the team standpoint, logistics, cost, it's tremendous. And for me, for the fan, it's really efficient, right? There's a lot of racing in a short amount of time. There's always action. I think it's a win, and I like them a lot. I just, when you have 90 degrees or 100 degrees like we've had a couple times already this year, and then you put a double race on that weekend, it's really hard on the driver and crew. I mean, brutal actually, and we're breathing through masks, obviously, and that's a tough deal.
Yeah. What is it about Mid-Ohio that caught your fancy? Number one, you got to go see real racing there as a little kid or a youngster. Let's put it that way. Yeah. But what is it about that place that caught your fancy from the standpoint of, is it the rolling hills? Is it the, if you go down into Thunder Valley in that area, you could just see guys really hanging it out. What is it that just caught your eye about the track?
It's what I know in my head the best. It's I just remember a lot of my dad's friends always talk, and we go out and watch other cars race, right? And they would talk about the lines they were on, to get around the track the quickest, right?
Yeah.
And I just listened to where, they're braking here and they're using all the apex curb here, and they're, all these little notes about the track that made you really good at the track, right?
Yeah.
And I grew up with that. So in my head, it was just always, plastered in my head that Mid-Ohio is the greatest place on earth, and make sure you know about it and know it when you go to drive race cars. And always wanted to do it well in front of my family and friends that would come and watch when I'd race.
Yeah, I told you that story when Bobby Rahal took me around there in a Chevy Concealer 2-seater car at speed. And I had driven some cars around there before, and even drove a sports Renault around there, but nothing like that, and it was like a roller coaster. Yeah.
I
mean, the backside when you go up over the hill and down and whatever and come around, and I told you I got out of the car after that time, and I said, now I know why you guys do this, because it's fun.
A lot of fun.
Until you've got another car right beside you going up over the hill.
And it's so tough to, in an Indy car, you're getting around there in a minute and 6 seconds or something, right?
That's crazy.
So there's not great opportunities to pass. That's another unfortunate byproduct of the track a little bit, but you still can pass. It's just really, tricky. If you think about, I want to say 2015 when Justin and Graham were racing each other at the end of the race.
Yeah.
And, Justin would have had to stove it in there to get by Graham, and he didn't that day. But that's an example of how difficult it can be and the chances you got to take when you're there to do that. But listen, the facility, it's home. If I ever had a chance to buy it and I could put a group together, I would buy it and bring it back to what I think could be potentially its full glory that it was when Jim Truman
bought it and fixed.
And look forward to the track itself is in good shape today. I mean, it's really it races fine, the pavement's fine. We know what it is. So.
Well, what stands out to me about it, John Fergus, you remember John Fergus? He described it one time, was describing the turns there, et cetera, and he goes, even their main straightaway, the back straightaway has a kink or a turn in it. So you're always sort of like busy there.
Absolutely.
And there are only 2 real places to pass there, in my opinion, maybe 3 if you really work at it. But the end of the back straight, we all remember Michael Andretti's tumble and all this kind of stuff. I mean, it's just when you think things are tame in an IndyCar, you forget that these guys are going 180 miles an hour, maybe 185 down at the top end of that back straight. I mean, there is danger involved.
Yeah. I mean, always. And I've had some big crashes there in my life. Not proud of them, but it does happen. And, you got gravel traps there now that slow a lot of this stuff down. But I think, it'll be interesting. They just announced this past week that they're going to allow a limited amount of fans in to our race. You're not going to be able to get down in the garage area like you used to be able to, which is part of what I love, actually, is interacting with the folks. But at least people get to come. They still can camp. It's limited. It'll be a different feel. But still going to get action-packed. Once it starts on Saturday morning, man, I mean, if you're a fan, you're going to have IndyCars in your face for the whole day.
Yeah. I mean, that is cool. And there will be fans, I think, on the hillside there in the back,
absolutely.
Where the S's are and all that stuff, and down in Thunder Valley, which is really just, I mean, there are like 5 or 6 places there. Being a sports writer, most of the time I'm confined to the tower, which you can't see.
Right.
You can't even see the pits that go out from the press box area. But I've always enjoyed, like during qualifying or practice, walking around standing up on the little hillside there at turn 1. I'm talking about on the outside of turn 1 where they turn and go up the straightaway. And then you see it come back. That's one of the great venues in auto racing because it is thrilling how fast these guys go through that left-hander turn one. And every time I stand there and watch these cars, I'm stunned by how just stuck to the track they are there. And then I keep remembering Nigel Mansell going up on the curb and showing people a new way of launching off the curb on the outside until it kind of bit him in one of the
took him out.
Nigel Mansell, man, he was a different dude.
Brave guy.
And then I'm also was impressed by Paul Tracy. He was the first guy I saw do this. You come down the back straightaway, you go up, you go down, you go up over the hill, whatever, make a right-hand turn, you go left. But then he would take and made that backside there a continual curve, which to me, I had never seen anybody do that. And it's like he picked up a half a second there, and other people do that now. So but what I'm getting to is this. You were sitting there, like, first time I met you, you had that Atlantic team, and you were back. Did IndyCar seem a long way away from you at that point?
It did.
And what year frame are we talking?
99, 2000, 98, 99.
You had your modest but always well kept.
Yeah, we did.
A little area there.
We kept it. We always made sure it looked good. In 98, 99, we ran a Canadian named Kenny Wilden and Sam Hornish next to him in 99 actually, and did really well. We won the race in 99 there. And Sam, I think, finished 7th for us that year. That next year, 2000, when Sam went to the IRL and kind of went on that path. But we've had great success there. We've had tough times there. We've had everything you can imagine, and just always glad to go back. Of course, we have the doubleheader now, and still on the calendar at the end of September, we'll have the Acura Sports Car Challenge there for IMSA Racing. So we got a couple races coming up here.
But I want to ask you real quick. Well, how far did IndyCar seem from you at that point, or was that always the aspiration?
No, it was. Well, it was always wanted to get there. But it was, it's hard to say this, but back then it cost another $4 or $5, $6 million per year to run IndyCar.
Right.
beyond what we're spending today because of how it ran, the old school way of how it ran. They had primary cars and backup cars and tons of motors and an engine war where they were really fighting each other with motors and stuff. And a tire war, so 2 different brands of tire. It's just a whole different world, right?
Yeah.
And the way it is today makes it attainable for a team like MSR. And we get our shot. So, more power to Roger. Actually, the people who came before Roger that set this
kind of in motion.
Set the whole thing in motion. They've definitely, they had the right idea when they came out with the DW12, and then they let it drift to body kits, which wasn't the right thing to do. And now they got us back on a similar body, and that is the right thing to do. So I think with Jay Fry at the helm, and it's just about efficiency and be able to give everybody a fairly equal opportunity to do well. And literally in our class in IndyCar today, even the guy that qualifies second to last or last, as in Pagano, can win a race.
Crazy.
It's just the right strategy, the right yellow at the right time, and you're a superhero. And they're all good drivers. It used to be, and you can speak to this. There were 6 or 7 guys you knew that just were not going to. They're going to be 5 laps down.
Right.
There's nobody 5 laps down anymore. If maybe one. At the end of a long race. So.
But I want to tell you something though. As I look back on those, great days of yesteryear, the thing I appreciated about having some back markers was they jam things up.
They do.
And they, like I remember at Nazareth when they'd run that mile oval at Nazareth, you'd have 3 levels of speed. You'd have the guys up front. You'd have the guys in the middle that were going to get lapped about 80 laps in, 50 laps in. And you had guys in the back would get lapped every 10 laps or something.
Absolutely.
But it, as the old roller derby, they were the jammers, and it caused you, it made for actually more competitive racing up front, even though there were only 5 or 6 guys who were competitive.
Absolutely, couldn't agree more.
I agree with you. I mean, if I'm an owner, if I'm getting into this, if I'm like a Brian Bailey and I want to be part of a team, and back a team, I want my team to have a shot.
Yeah.
And so let's get back. Let's look back real quick. Last time we talked, you guys had not run Iowa. And Iowa, as I said on Friday night, that was a testament, an example, maybe a pat on the back to Jay Fry and these guys for coming up with the aero screen.
Oh yeah,
because man, there were a couple. There were 2 definitely scary crashes in that race and stuff. And then the next night, you guys had some success there though. You felt better about yourself, I think, than Road America.
Yeah.
What just kind of came right for your team and Jack Harvey?
A couple things, I think. He had been there in an Indy Light car one time and did okay, actually. So he kind of knew what he was getting into going into it. Being there in the big car is a totally different deal, though. Yeah. So he had done a simulator, I believe, and so he had an idea of what he was up against. But, again, doing it in the real world. And, we're watching him in practice, and we were like second or third to last in practice, right? And that goes right from practice to qualifying. But I saw something different in practice. I could see that he kind of got it, right? Like he's like, I've not been here, but he's pushing himself hard. He's working with the engineer, and when we did a kind of a mock qualifying run, it got all bunged up in traffic. He didn't get to really show what he's capable of. Then when he goes out in qualifying, I mean, he qualified 9th and 6th, I think.
Yeah.
9th the first, and he went faster on his second lap, which is no one else did but him, right? And it was able, and my vow to him was I felt like we, on a strategy level with him this year, we've given him like a C performance. That's the people on the stand, right, on a strategy level. And so we worked really hard on the strategy. And what we said to him is, listen, we're going to put you in the top 5 or 6 at the end of these races, and it's up to you. Now, however we got you there, it's not our problem anymore. If we put you there, it's up for you to. You got to stay there. And with 30 laps to go on Friday night, we're 4th, and with 25 laps to go, we were 6th, and had a real shot to contend. So different things happened that held back our ultimate performance a little bit, but he was the fastest Andretti car pretty much the whole weekend. Raced with Ryan. Ryan Hunter was also pretty quick, a teammate in Andretti Autosport. So that's all we can do. So as from a team standpoint, position him to be in the top 5 at the end of a race, that's point done. From a driver's standpoint, qualify well because they're so short and abbreviated now, which he's done. He is qualified in the top 10, 5 of 10 race, or 5 of 6 races. 5 of 6.
Yeah.
And that's good. Now we just need to finish the races where we think we deserve to be. So you could easily see us with 5 top 5 finishes right now. We were positioned in 5 of those 6 races to be in the top 5.
Yeah.
And through no fault, no fault of Jack's, or it's just all just circumstantial stuff. But 2 7th places are good, and it's something we needed just to keep going. I think at Mid-Ohio, as long as the car hooks up like we think it will, I think Jack stands a decent chance of going in that fast 6 quali again and qualifying up in the top 6. So let's see what happens. Traditionally, Andretti has been strong at Mid-Ohio.
Yeah.
So we look forward to seeing how that plays out, and it's only a couple of weeks away now.
But as you look back on Iowa, though, what kind of was it the right rear tire? What kind of went away for you guys in those last 15 laps of both of those races?
So what I would say is,
I think people are intrigued by what kind of happens dynamically with the car.
One of the things that track is so hard on the right rear tire, and the ways you save the right rear tire are with what we call the tools in the cockpit to get the car so it's not so reliant on the right rear, or run a higher lane.
Yeah.
The more you pinch it down, the more stress you're putting on the outside tires, specifically the right rear. I'm telling you, he's up there battling hard trying to get by Rahal the first. Graham was a lap down, and we couldn't get by him, and he held us up badly the first day. And we burned our right rear off trying to get around him. So we start talking early. Think about your moves. You either got to go now, or you're going to have to save your tires.
Yeah.
And we did probably a grade of a B in saving our tires. Pretty good. Not probably the best. I think that said, though, I think the Andretti cars and the technology we have from them was not as strong as they usually are, and I think they may admit that themselves. Certainly the Penske's were really good. Connor Daly's car was really good, although he didn't get the finishes to show that, but his car was really strong on longer runs. That's just the way our series goes. There's going to be tracks that we are really strong. Just pure speed wise, like we have been with Andretti stuff.
Yeah.
And there's going to be tracks that traditionally have been tough for them or not quite as productive. But the way the series is today, you can't be perfect at all the tracks. Penske's been very good at Iowa for the last 3 years. By the way, for 5 years, Andretti dominated the place. It's just the change of bodywork, the change of the car a little bit. Everybody has a different take on it. Pavement changes, they break up and it starts getting bumpy, and grip level changes. So there's a lot of reasons why. But overall, I got to tell you, I am super pleased with the technology and support we get from Andretti's technologies, and feel like we've made a pretty good gain on most things from last year.
How are those pre and post practice and qualifying meetings? How are y'all conducting them from the standpoint of the whole Andretti Autosport group?
Yeah.
Is it all virtual, or is it? I mean, by virtual, I mean, is it all
Zoom meetings?
Or are y'all getting together under a big, huge tent? How is that operating?
The original concept, just over the winter after Andretti signed us, they committed to building this great big tractor trailer that they call a technical unit, right? And it's expandable, and all the drivers and engineers sit at a big long table, and they debrief together quickly. Okay, and that's the concept. That's the maximum sharing capability.
Yeah.
Okay. Now COVID hits. Now what do we do? Right.
Yeah.
So the way to do it now is each unit downloads and debriefs in their own trailer at the office in the front of the trailer, and then at the end of every session, the driver and engineer go socially distant to one of the pit boxes, and they all talk in a semicircle. Right?
Seriously.
Yeah. And they go around real quick what they found, and then because it's so fast paced, then they break and we all go do our individual things. There's a whole back room full of data and information being transferred through a giant server, and we can see all the changes in real time, and they can talk about strategies and car setups and who's trying what, and it's a really unique situation that is invaluable. How
much have you found that y'all's approach, I'm talking about your approach your engineer, which comes from Andretti, and then you personally, your approach, but also Jack's approach are compatible now. This 6 races in, I mean, from a standpoint of speaking the same language, but also what you want in a car, because y'all routinely or consistently have been, if not the fastest, one of the fastest Andretti cars.
Yeah. We got a little lucky. Our engineer that they put with us is a guy named Andy Listis, and he's been at Andretti's for, 8 or 9 years, and he was an assistant engineer, like you might call him a junior engineer, for a long time. And this was his first shot at the big time, running his own car. And he's super hungry, mega intelligent, very practical. And, we started, the trickiest thing is building the relationship between Jack and him so that they're communicating, right? And that started by going to lunch together in the wintertime, before racing started, before COVID, starting to communicate together, go to the simulator together. But then COVID hit, and we did a couple tests before COVID, and that went pretty well. COVID hits, we started doing this iRacing thing. So we did a virtual, Jack would be in his apartment, I'm at my house, Andy's at his house. We're all over the place, right? But we all got on iRacing. There's another thing, there's another spot we would go to that we could all get on to vocally talk to each other. And it would be like a virtual timing stand in all these states, right? And we worked the process out in iRacing on how to communicate on the stand. We got through 65% of it. We didn't get through all of it, but we just didn't sit on our ass the whole time. We went out and learned how to talk to each other before we got going again at Texas.
Yeah.
And so when we got to Texas at the beginning of June, we were all kind of familiar with each other. I mean, we even got testy with each other in iRacing. Right? And so we kind of got over that hump, right? Now, that doesn't mean it's perfect, and we know what our strengths are, we know what our weaknesses are, and we talk freely about it. But my point is that we got lucky with Andy and Jack because they work well together. And Andy never stops working. He constantly is trying to figure out ways to be better. Technically on the car, he's as strong as I've ever seen. And we just try to support him and give him the information he needs to make decisions for Jack.
How much do, during the actual running of the race, how much does Andy talk to Jack, or do you, or whoever the communication? How do y'all divvy that up from the standpoint of lap to lap? How much are you in Jack Harvey's ear?
So I talk to Jack on the stand, and Andy and I talk on the intercom.
So in other words, Andy never directly talks to Jack?
He does once in a while.
Okay.
But when he comes in, then the intercom gets plugged into the car, and they just talk while Jack's sitting in the cockpit.
Yeah.
And I don't say a word, right? I talk, and when we need something done on the radio, Andy tells me to ask him how the car is, or ask him uses what we call the tools. Use your front bar, use your rear bar. In the ovals, we use a wake jacker, right? Just all things to make the car better. And I say that to him, or encourage him, or try to help him, or whatever we can do. But it's interpreted, Andy to me to Jack. The idea is that Andy can really focus on all his information coming in. He doesn't have to think about talking to the car at the same time. And it works fairly well, I'd say.
Give me an example of the first 6 races, a moment where Andy figured something out in the middle of a run, and you got it translated to Jack, and you immediately saw dividends.
Yeah, so a lot of times Andy has plan A, B, and C, depending on what the car is doing, right? So it's here, it's on runs, and here's plan A if it's doing this,
right.
B, this, and the minute he hears on the radio, pit him this lap. Or we'll say, he'll come by me on the front straight, say, complete and pit. And the minute he comes in, he tells everybody, if he says this, we're going to do that. So he comes in, plugs in, says something, and immediately, all he has to do is look at Adam, the guy that runs the car, the crew chief, and Adam's on it.
Yeah.
Right? And dispersing the work. And that's all stuff that just comes with time and preparation, right? And understanding, one of the things that I've been able to help Andy with is I know Jack better than he does at this point. And I know when Jack needs a new tire run right now because he's getting frustrated, or when he just needs more time, or he's got it now, right? And as part of my job, I also look at the numbers on the timing and scoring, and they have a thing where they give sector times that I can watch in real time, and I can see when his what we call predictive or theoretical lap, which means if you strung all his perfect corners together, this is the fastest he could have gone on that given session, right? Out.
Yeah.
And when that number moves, that we made a gain somewhere. So if he comes in, the car's doing X, and he says, yep, I'm doing this, yep, he goes back out, and immediately our theoretical gets better. We made a gain. I can tell you right now, Andy, I would say to him, we're better.
Yeah.
I can tell you already we're better. Whatever you did there is the right direction, or conversely the other way.
It's funny as you're saying that, and I'm just sitting there thinking, but you know what? Every corner you take, a little bit of rubber's coming off those tires. You know what I mean? I mean, a little bit of grip is.
We call that degradation.
I know,
and it's hard. And it's hard to discern between degradation and the car being better.
Yeah,
it's my complaint. That I say to Firestone Tires. Conversely, Firestone Tires has been told make a tire that degrades to get the racing closer. Right?
Yeah.
So, but for a new guy, it's really difficult. It's difficult because you only get 1 or 2 runs where the tires can take optimum load, and then they're just done.
Yeah.
And there's nothing you can twist on the car that makes it better.
So how I guess during a race, like you were talking about, right rear, especially at Iowa coming off, you could just watch that race dynamically. How well, at Mid-Ohio, what is the key from a tire standpoint?
Well,
there's by the way, there's always been one corner there's always intrigued me from the standpoint, and it's funny how it's the first corner, but I think it just sets up your lap. I mean, the fastest you can go through turn 1 under the bridge, I think just
1 and 11.
1 and 11.
There's 2 high-speed corners that dictate the lap.
Much. Yeah, you agree, right?
Yeah, and how quick you. So what wears though typically is the outside left front, like from the carousel and the keyhole, right?
Yeah.
So the left front actually wears hard because you're really leaning on the left front through there to get the car to turn. So that'll be from a wear standpoint, but the lap time will come from 1 and 11.
Yeah, and see, I think that's a great trade-off because 1 and 11 are left-handers, I think, and the carousel and the keyhole are right.
There's tons of examples of where we'll set our car up like almost on an oval, and we'll give away the other corners.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying.
To get through
you do that, right?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you do, yeah. Because I've asked drivers that repeatedly. They always come up with some kind of like esoteric. Well, every corner is important, and I go, yeah, but there are certain areas on a racetrack where you definitely want to be fast or quickest. That sets up everything else.
Sebring has the same thing.
Yeah.
The last turn 17 coming on the front straight and turn 1. It's the same thing. It dictates the whole lap.
Yeah.
And so you tend to, if you're smart, you focus on those areas and let the others do what they're going to do.
Yeah.
Literally. Now, that doesn't mean you slow down. It means it's just not as good as it is through 17 and 1 or 1 and 11 at Mid-Ohio.
Yeah. Yeah. You drove race car there and stuff. Where's the pucker factor the highest? Is it turn 1 because 11?
Because you unload. You come over the top and you unload weight, and you just don't know where the balance is when you unload.
I spun there in a sports Renault car. I mean, I came over and I was going, hey, this doesn't feel right. And of course, I had never hardly driven race cars before, and I hit the brakes and whatever.
Yeah.
And man, it's amazing how fast you can just.
And there's a wall sitting out there. I've hit that wall before, so you got to be careful.
Yeah. Is that as you've driven on racetracks and stuff and around the circuit. What turn at Mid-Ohio is 11 the one that sets it apart in your opinion, or is the?
I don't think it's. I think turn 1 sets. Well,
I mean by 11, I meant is it the one that I've got you're thinking about when you're headed toward that turn
you're
every
thinking
time.
About it. Yeah. 1 and 11, but 11 just depending on how the car's balanced, The other stuff you kind of just, get a rhythm and kind of, but 11 is deceptive because a lot of times you want to carry a longer gear. You downshift, you feel like you're going faster because the motor's revving.
Yeah.
It seems like you're doing more, but you actually need to carry the mile an hour through, which a longer gear, so fourth gear instead of third gear maybe, or.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes total sense. And we talked about one. I mean, we all know Justin Wilson. The late Justin Wilson broke a vertebra.
He did.
Yeah,
he went off
when
there.
he went off there, and I'm telling people. I mean, I've told people this a million times. I was like, standing there, the guts it takes to go through there flat or almost
near flat,
near flat in an IndyCar is crazy.
Yeah.
You like the doubleheader weekends, as we've said, but do you think this is headed into next year and the years after?
I do.
Because I think it's out of COVID-19. I think a lot of things are coming, kind of opening people's eyes to maybe a better way of doing things.
There's three things. There's a compact weekends coming. There's more combination shows with NASCAR and sports car coming. And I think doubleheaders will make it more of an appearance. Now, we've always had Detroit in IndyCar as a doubleheader, but I think you're going to see a lot of move-in Fridays and race Saturday, Sundays, and we're done. And I believe they're going to pack a lot in that short amount of time. We got to be careful because there's a crossover point where the promoter and the track need to have cars on the track. They need to have an event, right?
Yeah.
If we keep doing this with it, it makes their window of revenue shrink, right? So they need to find a kind of a happy place, which I think for me, IMSA is a little different. IMSA moves us in at 1 p.m. on Friday on a general weekend, and then we have a practice session at 6 o'clock at night. Our first practice. Now, IndyCar waits and does that until Saturday, right? The most efficient model for the teams is to move in Friday, get all of our technical things done, inspections, and do Saturday, Sunday. IMSA spread that out a little bit more, but that's going to be an ebb and flow process, I think. But I think that's all great for efficiency and money. And by the way, remember, IndyCar has 100 officials there, and so does IMSA. They save as much money as we save. Yeah. However, the crossover point is what can the promoter and track deal with, right? What do they need? You know, in IMSA's case, they have other shows they can run Thursdays and Fridays, and they can be out of there by Friday night. And then the main show, you know, there's a way to do it. And IndyCar has that option too.
Yeah.
But I think there's a mix in there that is going to help all of us, honestly.
Yeah, I would think Saturday, Sunday show. I mean, Friday. I mean, I've been going to Mid-Ohio forever, and Friday crowd is never,
Yeah.
I mean, from a fan standpoint,
Sure.
and let's face it. I mean, that's what professional is all about: is putting fannies in seats or in front of the television.
Absolutely.
And otherwise, but I would think Saturday, Sunday would be embraced by most of these, some of these promoters, because, like you said, even them, they're paying staff.
Yeah, everybody wins.
Yeah,
everybody wins.
Yeah.
It's just, it's definitely harder on the team. IndyCar was very easy before during a weekend. Currently, the way current IndyCar is, we have the motors are pretty reliable now, and the cars don't change a lot. So you would run Friday, you'd do two 45-minute sessions. And 15 of those each you would sit because they don't give us enough tires to run the whole time.
Yeah, exactly.
So you'd sit around all day to run an hour on the track effectively, right?
Yeah.
And then just go into qualifying the next day.
Yeah, I thought it gave the media and all us guys enough time to run around and write stories, and start rumor stories about baloney.
Yep.
Hey, last thing. Is anything going to change from at Indianapolis from a schedule standpoint of like that first week and then the second week? What have you? Obviously, there's not going to be a parade and things like that.
They took away some of the cool stuff.
Yeah, exactly. But like the week leading up, is that going to be a start on a Tuesday? I mean,
Tuesday.
What do you give people a little insight?
I believe it does. It starts Tuesday after Mid-Ohio. And in fact, we all work late Sunday night and then head over to Indianapolis on Monday morning. And we're on track Tuesdays with rookies, and the veterans come a little later in the day. But 5 hours of practice each day as we go toward qualifying, and then the traditional, qualifying is happening Saturday and Sunday, and then carb day still on. Was that Friday? After that,
yeah.
And you still have those blackout days, but there's no Indy Light race there this year. They are going to do the pit stop competition, and they're going to heighten that. That's going to be a pretty big deal.
Yeah.
But you got to remember, we're all going right. We're doing 2 at Mid-Ohio, then we're going through the whole Indianapolis drill, and then we go right to St. Louis and do 2 at St. Louis.
Yeah.
So that St. Louis car, which has to be built while we're at the Indy 500. So it'll be in a garage right next to ours, with a group of some of the IMSA guys coming over to help make sure that car gets ready.
And your Indy car, is it still sitting right over here?
Yeah, both of them are over here. We have 2.
Yeah, and you feel pretty good at this moment about what you've been rubbing on that car for a while now.
Yeah, we ran it at Texas too, and it's our newest car, and we have special uprights and gearbox and everything for the 500 for it, and you know we'll be ready and we'll slick it up as much as we can, and you know, it's weird. I don't know. I think we may just have 33 cars this year, maybe 34. It's not going to be a big year, because of COVID mostly, I would say, and but that's okay. We're still going to have a great race as we always do. And qualifying will be exciting, you know, even if there's not enough to bump, that, you know, that they'll do something for the last row as a shootout, you know, something like that, which is always kind of fun. So
yeah. Gotcha. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we'll be chronicling that. Thanks to Brian Bailey and the Rocky Fork Company for making this podcast possible, Mike. And you know, there are a lot of exciting. August is going to be, holy moly, busy as heck. But until next time, for Mike Shank, this is Tim May with the S-Speed Podcast. We'll be talking racing.